Thank you. So good morning, everyone. I'm Lorenzo del Sordo, a senior cybersecurity consultant at Spike REPLY. I am part of the detection and response area within Spike REPLY that is responsible for cyber defense topics, blue team topics. And in particular, we divide our offering in three main areas. The CM log management area, in which we design, configure, implement, and optimize security solution based on CM and log management systems. Then we have the cyber threat intelligence area, in which we have experts in analyzing threats, analyzing threat landscape in order to prevent that these threats may affect our customers. And we have the security operation area, in which we have experts in analyzing and responding to cybersecurity threats, working in security operation centers. I will share with you some details about three innovative projects followed by my team during the last year. The first one is about DDoS attacks and CM, and in particular the detection of DDoS attacks in using CM solutions. The customer is a big player in the insurance group. And before moving to the details of this specific customer use case, I just want to give you some overview about CM solution and DDoS attacks. CM solutions are security architectures that enable customer to collect events and logs and information in a central point in order to use them to perform analysis, perform detections, and alert proper teams about possible anomalous activities and possible threats. DDoS attacks, as you may already know, are specific attacks that involves different sources that simultaneously send a high amount of volume of traffic to specific targets, specific resources of customer in order to overwhelm them, to slow down or stop services. These DDoS attacks may cause damages to a company as a disruption of online services, but also financial losses and reputational damage. These specific activities were performed after the request of the customer to implement and design specific detection for this kind of attacks. The customer was a victim of a big DDoS attack during an important annual assembly. And so it caused their main website to remain down for some hours during this important politic event. So a big reputational damage for the customer. We supported the customer producing detection, dynamic detection, using the CM solution. And we also involved some statistical calculation, some machine learning approach in order to adapt this kind of detection to different scenarios, because the customer is a really big customer with a lot of online resources to be monitored, and so we needed to create dynamic detections in order to reduce the number of false positive alarms. The aim of the customer was to quickly detect this kind of attack in order to alert the proper team and put in place the proper mitigation measure. The skills required for this kind of activities are for sure the knowledge of cybersecurity fundamentals and CM logics, but also some fundamentals of machine learning and statistical calculations. The second project is about some post-incident activities performed for a customer in the manufacturing group that was victim of a ransomware attack. Ransomware is a typical attack that locks servers and devices inside the company network, allowing the attacker to ask for a ransom before unlocking them. It was really interesting to notice that the attacker followed the typical attack path because it started the journey using a compromised credential that allowed him to enter in a public facing device of the customer enterprise network. Then exploiting a vulnerability, an unpatched vulnerability, it gained administrative rights and performed a privilege escalation on the affected server. He uses some hacking tools in order to map the devices linked to the first one and to lateral move to the devices, gaining access to different servers of different facilities of the company. He opened backdoors in order to maintain persistence and he spread the malware. The attacker locked a number of servers in different facilities, stopping the normal business operation for the customer for several days. So it was a critical attack. The customer asked our support in order to, first of all, recover the situation and restart the business operation. We, collaborating with other teams, including also Microsoft, we isolated and restored core security devices and hardened the security posture of the customer. And we also restored all the credential compromised. But the most interesting part was the analysis performed for this particular attack. Thanks to this analysis, we have also the whole attack path reconstructed. And we supported the customer in order to find weak areas, weak security areas in which we can support him to harden the security posture. It was really interesting to perform forensic analysis, but also operation of team coordination. The skills appreciated for this kind of activities is for sure passion for cybersecurity, but also the knowledge of common cyber threats and common vulnerabilities. The last one is activities about malware analysis. That is in the area of the threat intelligence, and the customer is again a big player in the insurance area. The threat intelligence is a fundamental practice in the field of cybersecurity, including all the analysis of the threat landscape in order to find the possible threats and vulnerabilities that may affect a customer. The sources of information for this kind of vulnerabilities are various, ranging from social media, deep web, dark web, information coming from the vendors, and so on. These specific activities are regarding a malware analysis. The malware was received by email by an important person inside the company because it was part of the top management group. It was really interesting to perform such operation because the code was completely obfuscated. And so my team worked in order to deobfuscate the code. Almost all the lines of the code was about the obfuscation logic, obfuscation part. Deobfuscating the code, they were able to identify the final goal of the malware, and that was to steal credentials linking to the browser. They found an indicator of compromises that are the information regarding the threat actor, and they shared this information within the company with the final aim to support the customer to share this information and to not be affected by similar attack anymore. The skills required for this kind of activities here are for sure scripting and coding knowledge, but also some fundamentals about network protocols in order to understand how the malware links to external devices in order to exfiltrate information. Okay, I leave the floor to Dimitri, and I stop sharing the screen, Dimitri.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, could you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Dimitri Silvio. I'm a senior consultant in the Network and Security Infrastructure Business Unit of Spike REPLY. I start by giving you a few pointers about the topics we cover in our business unit. As the name of the business unit suggests, we deal with issues relating to the security of the network infrastructure. Specifically, among the most frequent activities, we support our clients in projects such as the design and the optimization of the network infrastructure through the use of firewalling system, intrusion prevention and detection system, web application firewall, and so on. In addition, another important type of activity involves infrastructure assessment to identify gaps and improvements needed to implement the zero trust approach. And another pillar of our offering is the endpoint security. And this is the first project and the first topic we want to tell you about. The project of deployment and management of an endpoint detection and response solution was carried out at an Italian customer in the insurance sector. It started about 3 years ago and is still ongoing. The initiative scope includes about 60,000 endpoints, both client and server, and spread across several countries. Specifically, the customer was assisted in improving the anti-malware security posture by proposing solutions and configuration that follow the security best practices such as prevention policies, event detection policies, sensor update, and so on. Both endpoint security administrator and security analyst are involved in this project, and their skills include knowledge of the key security threats and endpoint protection issues. The phase of this initiative in which we were involved were the initial design phase, the subsequent deployment and testing phase in the different countries involved in the project, and finally maintenance, tuning, and the continuous optimization, which is still ongoing. To give you a concrete idea of the implemented solution, let us first clarify what endpoints are. Endpoints are defined as any device that is connected and exchanging information with a network. So they can be workstation, they can be server, IoT devices, or mobiles. So securing endpoints properly is essential nowadays, as any endpoint could be an entry point for an attacker. Therefore, an EDR, endpoint detection and response system, is a solution that secures the devices that connect to the network so they cannot serve as a point of access to the network for the malicious actors. Let's now see how an EDR works and why it's so important for an organization. I want to emphasize the main aspects that distinguish the EDR from a traditional antivirus system. First of all, the security approach. Antivirus system has a reactive security approach, and this means that when it finds a threat, the antivirus software takes action to quarantine or delete the infected file. On the other hand, EDR takes a proactive approach by monitoring the behavior of the endpoints and identifying potential threats based on anomalies and suspicious activities. Another important difference is the detection method. Traditional antivirus software detects malware using known threat signatures and patterns that are stored in a database. It relies on a signature updates to detect new threats. And this dependency on updates can result in a significant delay between the emergence of the new threat and its detection by the software. Instead, the EDR solutions are behavior-based and use the advanced techniques like machine learning and behavior analysis to detect and respond to both known and unknown threats. Another key factor is the response capability, since the antivirus takes action only when a threat has entered the system before it starts to perform malicious actions. EDR, on the other hand, provide near real-time visibility into the endpoint activities and so accelerates incident response by automating threat containment and remediation actions. So in this way, EDR reduces the time it takes to address the security incidents and minimizes the potential damage and business disruption caused by cyber attacks. The last key factor is the monitoring and data collection feature. EDR continuously monitor and analyze endpoint data, providing security teams with a centralized approach and a comprehensive view of all the potential threats. And this feature allows the security team to investigate and respond to incidents in real time by, for example, isolating the compromised endpoints or blocking the malicious network connection. So all these features help the organizations in containing and mitigating potential threats before that they can cause significant damages. The second project we want to mention is an activity related to the topic of the radio frequency security. Specifically, this project consisted of the implementation of a Wi-Fi network for guest users at the Italian headquarters of an Italian customer in the manufacturing sector. The activity lasted about 3 months and involved 2 of our security experts with knowledge in particular of wireless security technologies. The first phase of the activity was an assessment of all the customer infrastructure in order to understand the context in which to deploy the solution. Then there was the design and the configuration phase of the equipment and of the solution, followed by the writing of the documentation to enable the customer to replicate this solution at its other European locations. Finally, the last phase was the deployment in the production environment with several test sessions to verify that the solution was working properly. Since the number of devices that connects wireless to a network has been increasing a lot in the recent years, activities and projects of this kind are very common. In fact, it's critical for an organization to monitor not only the devices of the employees, wired or wireless, but also those of guests, external consultants, or visitors accessing the building who would not be connected to the corporate network. And it's also important to keep in consideration other unmonitored devices such as smart TV, security cameras, and printers, and all the devices that could radiate information wireless and could be potentially a tool to execute a cyber attack, just like a normal cell phone. The consequences, just to name a few, could be the interception of the victim's device traffic, the TikTok credentials, and the introduction of cell phones into unauthorized areas from which sensitive information could be stolen through, for example, taking a picture with a cell phone. So since the range of attacks that can affect the security of an organization has increased exponentially, it's essential today to adapt one or more solutions that are able to provide the full visibility of the entire spectrum, locate threats, detect suspicious data transmission for both employees' devices and guest devices, and integrate with the pre-existing security systems to provide alerts and responses automatically. Another typical use case that the customer might request is the geofencing for the radio security. An example might be securing a specific area such as an executive meeting room or a research or production area where activities protected by trade secrets are performed. So it may be necessary for companies to define a no device allowed zone to protect their intellectual properties or financial strategies and results. The activity defined as geofencing therefore consists of a series of actions and policy implemented when a user with his devices physically enters or exits a specific area associated with the virtual perimeter. The vulnerabilities that must be addressed include unauthorized employee access, data exfiltration, eavesdropping, and so on. An appropriate security solution to secure, for example, executive managers' boardrooms must be able to monitor the entire radio spectrum and must be able to provide visibility into the wireless network traffic and the device operating in and around the building perimeter. Must be able to provide geofencing capabilities to secure a particular perimeter, must monitor and track all the device movements, and must be integrated with the other system to provide alerts about attacks or unauthorized access. And it's also important that this solution is able to detect installed vulnerable devices or unauthorized cellular towers that may send signals into the area that have to be protected. I will now leave the floor to Guglielmo, who will tell you about the industrial security business unit.
Hello, so my name is Guglielmo Ranieri, and I'll talk about industrial security. Basically, to talk about industrial cybersecurity, we need to consider that our unit focuses on basically securing end-to-end cybersecurity for all the machinery involved in production. So when we think about an hydraulic press or every machinery that can be used in a plant to produce some goods, which is controlled by an hardware or connected to internet, basically this type of security concerns the industrial security. We operate at 360 degrees, performing security assessment on the machinery itself or the network of the plants that needs to have their particular rules and particular segregation, and fundamentally we execute also determined type of assessment which are specifically directed to this type of machineries, which have their rules and also their principles, which differ a little bit from IT security. For example, this kind of machinery are more focused on availability, since the data that they transmit and utilize always changes. So having the secure connection between them extremely secure is not as fundamental as have them completely stable in order to receive data on time and always. So the industrial cybersecurity focuses on isolating these machines from the external world, basically, and ensuring communication is always active in order to prevent disaster which could potentially affect the production and also human lives.
Sorry, Guglielmo.
The project that we
I can only see
can
the
you,
first
can you hear
slide.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I can only see the first slide. Like still this presentation slide. Is
Yeah.
it supposed to be like that or? Okay, sorry, because I was looking at the same slide and I didn't know if there was another one. That's it. Sorry to interrupt.
No. Then the second slide talks to which I'm going to talk about. This is a project that differs a little bit from what before smart building. This smart buildings might be a little different from, of course, I thought right now how the industrial equipment.
We have problem hearing you. I think he also disconnected, right? Yeah. Okay. We cannot hear you anymore.
Can you hear?
I think you have some problems with your internet connection because the voice comes and goes. So yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Is it fixed right now?
Might be. I can tell you. No, it's still the same actually. Let's see.
Okay, I can see the slides back again, so it should be
fine. It should be okay. It should be okay.
Okay, sorry for the troubles.
No problem.
Then again, I was talking about the differences between smart building and what I've talked about, because basically, even if industrial security is focused 100% on machinery, a smart building, so a building which is increasing its popularity all around the world and in Italy also as well, are basically buildings completely focused and controlled and managed by IT devices and OT devices. So from the lighting, heating and ventilation, elevators, everything is directly managed by a computer system. So it has some similar characteristics to the industrial equipment. In this case, to execute this project, it was necessary to combine experiences from both OT security, so operational technology cybersecurity, and IT cybersecurity, and physical security itself. Dimitri, can you go back one slide? Thank you. Basically, the project was focused on 3 different goals. First of all, identify the overall risks of the to which a smart building is exposed, because of course the smart building is exposed to both physical and cyber risks. Also analyze their threats coming both from the physical part, so from how people can access the building if they're not intended to, or also how can people try to hack into the building and try to modify its intended work. Secondly, it was based on the analysis of the documentation, since the building that was analyzed had to be built as well. So it was not already built. It was not already built. Thirdly, we needed to interview the stakeholders in order to verify, first of all, that all the documentation was correct. And secondly, if there were any gaps on the documentation, so something that needed to be added, and also if all the people knew exactly how a smart building works and how to secure it. Secondly, we needed to reduce the cyber exposure of the building. So analyze all the network, how the different systems, which needed to be completely isolated in order to not be accessible from the external world, were working, and if they were exposed to different types of risk. And in the end, we had to provide some mitigation to our customer in order to reduce their exposure and increase the security, and also improve the working of the building itself. Because if everything is controlled by a central system, which is called building management system, everything must work at the same pace in order to ensure that the building works correctly. As I said before, the skills combined were the skills of a physical risk assessor, so a physical security expert, a person which is able to identify the gaps in security. For example, where it was important to analyze where the cameras were placed, how the walls of the building were built, which kind of windows were needed to utilize in order to protect the different areas, and also an OT security expert, which needed to analyze the different system and how those systems, which need to be extremely segregated one from another, have to communicate one with another, and if needed, with the external world. Generally, in order to perform this kind of assessment, it was necessary to have basically knowledge on the most important cybersecurity standard for OT world, which is the IEC 62443, the Bible for OT security. Also known some types of common cyber attacks which can affect a smart building, but also knowing some principles of industrial and IT risk mitigation, because again, a smart building and its system can be associated with industrial equipment. And in the end, knowing, of course, some of the main IT and OT vulnerabilities in order to identify them and then mitigate them. The second project was more typical compared to the first one related to the industrial world, because it was an assessment, a physical assessment of different plants of a customer all around the world. The goal of this project, the project lasted 7 months, and the goal was to analyze different plants all around the world in order to identify weaknesses and mitigate potential risks to which those were vulnerabilities to which those were exposed. If you can go on. The first thing to note is that, of course, as it was said before, plants need to be completely segregated from the corporate internet. So it is extremely important that the corporate network is separated from the network of the plants. The goal of the person working in this during this assessment was to ensure that the IT world was completely or extremely separated from the OT world, identify cyber vulnerabilities in the plants, and also identify physical risks. Because in the industrial world, it is not only important to protect the data as it is for the IT world. It is important, it is crucial to protect the machinery. And one of the most important sources of threat is the physical threat. So during the activities, the experts were performing network scans. So using particular tools, they connected to the network of the plant, which again should be segregated from the IT network, and then verify if there were some kind of malicious connection between the machineries. For example, if a particular machinery should not communicate directly with internet or with another machinery, that should be the tool, and the scan should verify it and try to identify the source, if the source is legit or if the source is malicious, and then identify that as a potential vulnerability. Secondly, it was performed a physical inspection in order to identify some physical vulnerabilities. For example, if there was not a safe access from the plant. So for example, if it's possible from an outsider to easily enter in the plant without any authorization, or if the machinery had some exposed port. If you know one of the most important and famous cyber physical attacks, so the Stuxnet, you know that that attack was triggered by a person potentially injecting a malware through an USB port. So it is important that the machineries have all their ports disabled or at least locked. Another important part was performing active test on machinery. So running some few basic scripts is possible to identify if the software utilized by the machinery is secure, or if there are some known vulnerabilities that, for example, have been fixed or need to be fixed. So if it is possible to exploit a vulnerability physically in the plant. And the last thing, but not least, was to try to standardize the approach, because since the assessment needed to be executed on different plants all around the world, it was necessary to identify a basic methodology which needs to be replicated in order to provide a standardized approach and then a standardized results in order to increase the overall security of the plants. Basically, the actors involved during this kind of activities were an OT cybersecurity expert, which needed to perform all the OT-related machinery analysis. So, for example, vulnerability identification, and a security analyst that utilized to perform network scan and identify, for example, vulnerabilities in the network of the plant. Again, the standard that will always be in this kind of analysis is the IEC 62443, which is the Bible for industrial security. And also was necessary to provide some basic scripting knowledge in order to execute safely the scripts on machines, because one of the paradigms of the plant inspection is that the plant must never stop. Even during the assessment, it is important to execute secure scripts, secure analysis, which need to not to tamper at all the functioning of the normal operation of the plant, because even a single minute loss for a plant is a lot of money spent or a potential dangerous situation. Thirdly, it was important to know how to utilize some plant network and some security tools utilized for the analysis of the network and plant security. And in the end, know how to perform some vulnerability analysis for all the OT system themselves. The last project to which I'm going to talk about is the assessment of secure remote assistance. Dimitri, can you go on to the next slide? This project is basically secure remote assistance is essential for what it concerns the OT world, because as it was said before, it is important that the OT machinery and OT network is separated from the IT world. But generally, in plants and in companies, there is not the expertise in order to perform active maintenance on machineries themselves. So generally, this is left up to the vendors. In order to perform this kind of maintenance, it is important to guarantee to the vendor the possibility to connect remotely to an asset. But how can you connect remote to an asset which theoretically is not connected to the internet? That's why it is important to identify and utilize instruments that guarantee, first of all, the connection between, a safe connection between the person which is operating outside from the perimeter of the plant and the machinery itself, but also prevent the machine to directly connect to the internet. So for example, utilizing broker instruments or special solution and VPNs, it is necessary to establish a secure connection, direct or mediated, to the machine. The goal of the project were to, first of all, identify the needs of the client, because the client had different solutions at the moment to perform this kind of assistant, generally chosen by the vendor themselves, and then choose a new solution which respected all the needs of the customer and was able to provide a good level of security. The first step was to identify all the security requirements given by the customer, but also security requirements known by our expert. So mediate the two knowledges in order to have a baseline which was essential for the definition of a instrument to use. Secondly, it was important to analyze the minimum functional features of the different people operating on the plants. Since the project was performed on plants all around the world, different plants, different individuals had different vendors and also different needs. It was important so to identify the list of all the needs of the individuals and then create a list of all the requirements that were essential for a solution in order to be utilized by all the different plants. In the end, the last phase was to know different solution in the market or solution utilized internally by the company and perform an analysis on the solution themselves in order to identify if the security requirements were met, first of all, and secondly, if the minimum functional requirements were met as well, in order to guarantee that every individual was able to, every plant was able to utilize all the features needed, but also a good level of security was always maintained. Generally, the person involved in this type of project were only OT security expert, and the skills utilized were the basic standard described before, principles of network protocols, because it were important in order to identify the correct solution which was able to mediate between the OT network and the IT network itself, and also the knowledge of different solutions on the market, because it was important to select available solution in order to identify, analyze them, and verify if they were able to meet the client's need. I will leave now the word to my colleague to the last part of our presentation.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm going to share my screen. Say me if you can see it, please.
We can.
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So, good morning, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Antonino Morabito, cybersecurity consultant at Spike Reply in the business unit automation. In this presentation, initially, to give you some context, I will present a brief overview of attack trends. Next, I will show you our proposals to responding to cyber threats, giving you 2 use cases of activities we perform daily: vulnerability and patch management and automated security validation process. Finally, we will draw conclusion, highlighting the roles and so the skills needed to do these activities. So we can start. Over the years, as I'm sure you already know, cyber attacks have increased in number and also in impact, as evidenced by this chart that is part of the Clusit report that you can download by framing the QR code in this slide. Now, if we zoom into H1 2023, our pie chart reveals the primary techniques used by attackers. So, malware, a persistent threat, the exploitation of vulnerabilities, so weakness that allows opponent to breach defenses, and phishing, social engineering, that take advantage of the low awareness of cyber risk. Understanding this trend is crucial. They underscore the urgency for businesses to react quickly and efficiently, reducing cyber risk and protecting against cyber attacks. The effects of inaction are too significant to ignore them. So let's go to the next slide to highlight how our company not only recognizes the challenges, but offers solutions. In this slide, you can see the Gartner Hype Cycle, a visual representation of some of the innovative solutions. You can see on the left the more innovative ones. On the right, the more established one. We focus on some of the highlighted technologies like automated penetration testing, breach and attack simulation, SOAR, and vulnerability assessment. Not forgetting the most innovative trends such as generative cybersecurity AI. The purpose of this proposal is to use automation to deal with the growing number of threats in order to have greater efficiency and especially to move from a reactive to a predictive and proactive approach. To prove it to you, I show you the first project, vulnerability and patch management, which aims to reduce the attack surface of an organization. So imagine an IT company providing services with a mix of Linux and Windows servers. So a simple scenario. In the dynamic landscape of cybersecurity, managing vulnerabilities is a critical and a cyclical process, which we can simply summarize in 4 steps. In the first one, the automated scanning tool scans the targets in order to identify which of them are vulnerable, and so the associated vulnerabilities. Then a report is generated that considers prioritization based on the severity of the findings. Subsequently, mitigation actions are performed to fix the problems, such as applying patches and implementing security measures, with the aim of improving what is called security posture, and so decreasing the risk. Finally, it's verified that the remediation action has worked properly, and then we can go back on the phase 1, because potentially new vulnerabilities could be discovered every day. So this is called continuous monitoring. Speaking of continuous monitoring, I present you our second use case, automated security validation process, which aims to continuously measure, monitor, and validate security effectiveness with two possible approaches. An offensive one, to measure security posture through real attacks, so the automated penetration testing, and a defensive one, to assess the effectiveness of defense mechanism, so the breach and attack simulation. In the first case, real-world harmless exploits are executed with an automated tool that generates a step-by-step path, indicating the steps used to exploit the weakness, which can be easily remediated only by eliminating the root cause, so the entry point. In the second case, instead, attacks are simulated to check how the defense mechanism, like firewall, antivirus, and so on, respond to these attacks, and then configure them appropriately in order to have a score that measures how well it works. Both automated penetration test and breach and attack simulation have a common goal: improve security posture, elevating the overall security of the organization. In conclusion, in this slide, you can see a summary of the main activities performed in the projects that we have seen together during the presentation. The roles that are filled to perform these activities are those of cybersecurity analyst and cybersecurity expert, for which these types of skills are required, ranging from more technical skills, such as knowledge of network security, operating systems and applications, and also technical skills in ethical hacking and security tool, to soft skills like problem solving and curiosity. In addition, knowledge of scripting languages like Python and the ability to create script certainly provide an additional layer of expertise. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay, we have finished, I think.
Okay. I was looking at the list of guests, and maybe I don't know if Martina Gozzini is here. I want to tell us something. I don't see.
Yes. Hi, Lorenzo.
Okay.
I'm here.
Hi. Sorry,
Yes,
I didn't see you in the list. Sorry.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, actually, I don't want to add anything more than what my colleague said. Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Maybe we can put in the chat the link to the career page, so that if you, looking for jobs or just want to have a look, you can find it there. We can put it now.
Okay. And in the meantime, I will ask to our participants if they want to ask something, curiosities, and something that you found interesting and you have a question about it. Questions about it. We have a question from Ali Reza. Do you use blockchain and Web3 technologies in your work? I don't know who can answer that, but probably one of you can.
Federico Lella speaking, everyone.
Okay.
Of course, Alireza, we have some project, maybe not specifically on project that we presented today, but of course, mainly on a blockchain regarding data protection. Of course, we have some project, some very specific project when we use this technology.
Okay, I have a question in general about how does it work, because I think you offer like a sort of I don't know if the term is correct in English, but consultancy. But what happens if maybe the task or the technology used by the third party agency is far from your knowledge? Do you try to hire somebody that maybe has a knowledge on it, or maybe do you try to how can I say, forward the task to somebody else that you know, like a third-party private person? How does it work when maybe your skills in your group is far from the technology used by an agency that wants your consultancy? Sorry.
Yeah, Lorenzo, thank you for the answer. As a Spike reply, we have our strategy is to train and to let me say, to propose to our employee a lot of technical courses, training, but not also technical. Also for, let me say, soft skill training.
Okay.
And our approach is to have those competencies on technologies and soft skill for the cybersecurity perspective inside our company.
Okay.
And if there is a specific topic, a very vertical topic that we cannot cover, we try to search outside Spike Reply a competence. In Reply, there are a lot of other companies that may have this skill, but after the first project, we want to internalize the skill and maybe propose a course or training to our employees.
That makes sense. I think it's a good way of keeping yourself updated. Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if you have any other question, guys. I will wait just a second. Maybe I can ask you something about what kind of traits or skills. I saw some soft skills and some more vertical skills that you're looking for. But if you want to suggest something to look in to maybe for a career option with you, what would it be? Like what kind of skills or knowledge would you look at first, let's say?
Yeah, so the skill, let me say, that I can propose, the soft skill is the most important is the curiosity, because cybersecurity is as let me say, information technology is a very fast topic that change continuously. So we cannot propose a vertical, technical or soft skill that is actual all over the year. But I think that is better to have a lot of curiosity to study, to train yourself, and try to get most information, most capabilities during years. If I have to speak about a concrete skill, I think that network security should be one of the technical skill that the basic of the network security that could be transversal, horizontal, let me say, in all vertical topic, in OT cybersecurity, network cybersecurity, of course, but not also automation, detection and response, and so on. Okay.
Curious, I would have guessed some more some scripting language skill or maybe programming language skill, but also if it's very true that the knowledge of network security and networks itself, it's actually very important.
Yes, in cybersecurity, the scripting is used mainly to automatize some job and make easy our job, and in some let me say specific attacks from the offensive perspective. But the thing that is very important is to have the skill on the cybersecurity technologies that we can propose to our customers.
Clear. Okay, thank you very much for your answer. It's very interesting, and I think most of our participants are looking towards some of them, of course. I don't know if you have any more questions, guys. I haven't seen them, so I guess we don't. I will just wait a second, and if there's no other question, I will close the next Friday talk. Okay, I guess there are no more questions. Thank you again for all our guests from Spike Reply. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you here. And I wish you all a good evening and a very good weekend. I'll see you next week with the next Friday talk for cybersecurity. And take care of you.
Thank you, Lorenzo.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a nice
Bye-bye.
day. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.